Good evening, I'm Maribel Tarouk. Soleiman Fakir died alone in his jail cell 3 years ago. But today, on the anniversary of his death, people in 7 cities gathered to remember him. His family's relentless search for answers has grown into a national movement. Angelina King explains why. But first, a warning. This story contains details and images that some viewers may find disturbing.
As dozens gathered in downtown Toronto to honor Soleiman Fakir, his family continues to search for answers.
Soleiman didn't roll over and die.
Vigils were held across Canada today to also raise awareness of the treatment of people with mental illness in the justice system. Fakir had schizophrenia. His family says he was having an episode when he was charged with aggravated assault and uttering threats. He had been on remand for 11 days when he died inside his jail cell in Lindsay, Ontario. Police investigation notes said he was being aggressive and got into an altercation with guards. Documents show Fakir was found with more than 50 abrasions, ligature marks, and bruises on his body and neck. A coroner determined his cause of death unknown. The Kawartha Lakes Police Service didn't lay any charges.
Ambulance, what is your emergency?
But things changed during a Fifth Estate investigation last year. The program interviewed a former inmate who says he saw everything, an account he previously didn't tell police.
They beat him to death. I don't know how else to describe it.
At the time, Ontario's Correction Ministry said its investigation into Fakir's death was complete, but there were outstanding HR matters. Not long after, the chief coroner reopened the criminal investigation. This time it's in the hands of the OPP. Charges could be laid.
And I think that we have a lot to learn from this very tragic case. The intersection of incarceration, detention, and mental health primarily.
The Fakir family says this isn't just about them. They say it's a systemic issue, and they're fighting for all families in similar situations.
Soleiman's life mattered. Although he paid the ultimate price, his story became a catalyst for change to fix a broken system. If we get accountability and transparency on Soleiman's life, this story will give other families hope.
While he waits to see if charges will be laid in his brother's death, his memories are always with him.
I miss his sense of humor. I miss his brilliance. He spoke 3 languages. He was a man that was a gift to my family.
A family that says they're optimistic they'll eventually get answers. Angelina King, CBC News, Toronto.
Police are investigating after a 21-year-old woman was pulled from the Credit River without vital signs. A man called police to report a woman in the water near J.J. Plouse Park in Mississauga just before 11 last night. Firefighters began searching the area and found the woman 45 minutes later. She was taken to a hospital where she was pronounced dead. A bag of clothing could be seen abandoned near the river. Police are treating the incident as suspicious. A man has died after he was found in an SUV in North York with a gunshot wound.
The investigation to determine what transpired prior to this is just beginning to become underway at this point in time, with the investigators arriving on scene. So it's a little bit early, or it's far too early in the investigation to state what happened prior to this.
Police were called to a plaza parking lot at Keele and Wilson just before 1 a.m. They found the wounded man without vital signs. He later died at the scene. Investigators say there were no calls about the sound of gunshots in the area. They are asking anyone who may have witnessed the incident or has dash cam video to contact police. And in Scarborough, police are investigating after a man was struck and killed while crossing the street. It happened on Lawrence Avenue East, west of McCowan, around 1:30 this morning. Police say the man was not crossing at the lights. The driver remained on scene and is cooperating with officers. Investigators are asking anyone who may have seen the crash to call police. Well, if you pass by a TTC bus over the next few weeks, you'll see portraits of men and women posted on the back of the vehicles. They're images of people killed by impaired drivers. It's a project by Mothers Against Drunk Driving to remind people to always drive sober, but especially during the holiday season. Kelda Ewan caught up with some families whose lives are forever changed by impaired driving.
Daughters, sons, sisters, brothers,
10 in total, each one killed by an impaired driver, each one now memorialized on the back of a TTC bus.
It's bittersweet. I mean, there's so many of these posters.
Brian Wijeratna's father, Neil, and sister, Alicia, were killed in 2012. They were on their way back from Florida, driving northbound on the 427 when they were struck by an impaired driver going the wrong way. Both died at the scene. Brian's mother, Antoinette, was badly injured. She still remembers waking up to the horrific news.
My world is collapsed, my world shattered.
The pain, they say, doesn't go away.
We were a happy family and we miss them so bad. Life is so empty without them.
Over the past 10 years, more than 1,700 people have been killed and over 25,000 others injured in collisions involving drunk drivers. As of the end of November, there have been 41 deaths involving alcohol or drugs on OPP-patrolled roads. In 2018, 56 people were killed. The OPP is warning drivers they have more powers now under impaired driving laws introduced last year. For instance, officers can now demand a breathalyzer test from anyone, even if you're not suspected of impaired driving.
The man that killed Michael, he refused the breathalyzer.
Marc Boutilier's son, Michael, was only 24 when he was killed by an impaired driver in 2015.
I miss his hugs. He had the world's best hugs. Yeah. Every day still, I think about him. I love him. I miss him.
She and others also worry about cannabis.
The younger generations don't take it as seriously in terms of its impairment as alcohol, but they really should.
The initiative is part of MAD's Project Red Ribbon campaign, which runs until January 2nd.
I don't want any mother to go through these things, any wife to go through these things. So I feel like I'm helping someone.
Kelda Yoon, CBC News, Toronto.
A brand new Toronto Community Housing Corporation residence in Regent Park officially opened today, giving new residents a fresh start in time for the holidays.
This is so important when we look at the housing challenges that are facing our city, which are considerable and which we're working very hard on. Regent Park and its revitalization is part of a much larger plan in addressing housing affordability.
This is the 13th TCHC building constructed in the area. The residence, located at 150 River Street, will have 125 rent-geared to income units and 33 affordable below-market rental units. Tenants can start moving in this week. It is all part of a larger revitalization project in Regent Park to create a mixed-income community that will see thousands of affordable units built alongside market-priced residents. Let's do our first check of weather with Sonia Sash. So we're wrapping up the weekend. How's it looking for the start of the week?
Well, thank goodness the wind gusts have subsided. We saw 50, 60 kilometer wind gusts, but that again is easing off. We do see the system passing through. What does that mean? Well, it's going to be a lot drier over the next couple of hours, 36, 24 hours. Snowy system will stay mostly over the Great Lakes, but I do want to talk about temperature. So let's move over. Yep, here we go. So it's going to be 1 degree on Monday afternoon, but then things start to take a nosedive. So we have this Arctic air that's being pulled down to the south. What does that mean? By Wednesday, we're going to see minus double digits. So it's going to feel even colder than what we have been seeing right now. So let's take a look at Kitchener, -1, feeling like -6. Burlington, again, it's going to feel like -13 come Wednesday. Toronto, much of the same, -11 is what it's going to feel like on Wednesday and Thursday. But thankfully, it's going to be a lot drier, and really we are near seasonal. We are seeing this air mass, though. This high pressure system is bringing in the cold air. This other high to the south is bringing in the moisture. They're literally coming together, and that might bring some snow come Wednesday.
Okay, well, bundle up. Thanks a lot, Sonia.
Thank you.
We'll be right back. If you're getting on a plane anytime soon, heads up, you could be eligible for a payout if your flight is delayed or canceled. The federal government's second round of passenger rights rules kicked in today. Philip Lee Shannock breaks it down.
It sounds like a good deal. If your flight is canceled or delayed, stranded passengers will have to be compensated by airlines by up to $1,000. That's thanks to Phase 2 of the passengers' rights rules, which come into effect today. And travelers here seem to like it.
I think that should be a minimum standard, right? That they should be compensating, customers for delayed in flights.
I will take that. Yeah, I'll take that. I hope if it's going to be $1,000 cash, I don't want my flight to be delayed every time I'm traveling.
It may just get them on their toes. Maybe that's what we need.
The government says the new rules will bring Canada's passenger protection into line with the EU's. But is that really the case? Air passenger rights advocates say it's unlikely a customer will ever see a dime.
What the government has done here is a publicity stunt. To tell people that if your flight is delayed or canceled, you will get $1,000. It makes wonderful headlines. It sells well. But to tell the people, well, actually, there are so many exceptions that you will not see a dime, that's not popular, but nobody's paying attention to it.
That question was put to the federal transportation minister.
So what I would encourage people to do is to look at the whole of the passenger regulations or rights that we have put in place. And I think that I have no hesitation in saying that these are the best in the world when you look at the entire package.
Consumers will be watching to see how many claims are paid out, to see who these new rules actually protect, the travelers or the airlines. Philip Lee Shannock, CBC News, Toronto.
A Canadian family is taking Ottawa to task after their 10-year-old son was flagged at the airport again as a possible security threat. Adam Ahmed's name is on the no-fly list. Natalie Nanowski spoke with his parents and has this story.
Adam Ahmed loves the Habs, but to catch them on home ice, he has to catch a plane. And that's when issues arise, just like they did yesterday.
We couldn't check in online or at the kiosk. We had to go to the counter and they had to call security to clear him.
This has happened for 10 years, Adam's entire life, because his name appears on the no-fly list. His dad was so fed up about yesterday's holdup,
I turned the agent's screen and took a photo of it.
And tweeted it out, saying, "We hope at no-fly list kids the silliness and soon, Bill Blair." The Minister of Public Safety responded, apologizing for the difficulties.
His staff reached out right away, and to Minister Blair's credit, we are meeting with him on Thursday.
But the government had already promised to fix the issue back in 2016 when Adam's problem first came to light. It said then it was looking into a redress number system used in the United States. Basically a number in addition to your name that identifies you.
This shouldn't happen, and the fact that the United States has had a working redress system for 10 years, can't you just copy paste?
In an email, the government told CBC it has invested $81.4 million over 5 years to build a new centralized screening system. That should roll out late next year. But Suleiman says he's only cautiously optimistic, citing concern over a CBC News exclusive that Transport Canada took 10 years to investigate a racist song that was shared in the no-fly list office by someone who still works for the government.
So right now our confidence is shaken.
He's talking about the hundreds of families that are part of his group, No-Fly List Kids.
There are kids in our group who've become adults who are stopped, who don't go on basketball trips, who don't travel anywhere else.
The hope is that will change soon, so Adam and all the others can move around freely. Natalie Nanowski, CBC News, Toronto.
A former executive with SNC Lavala has been convicted of fraud and corruption. Sami Babawi was accused of pocketing millions of dollars in illegal dealings with Libya. You may recall SNC also at the center of last winter's Liberal government controversy. Jayla Bernstein has the details.
The case spanned multiple countries and more than a decade. But after just 3 days of deliberations, a Montreal jury found Sami Babawi guilty on all charges, including corruption of foreign officials and laundering proceeds of crime.
I think that the message generally is that Canada takes seriously its obligations and all offenses committed
Key to the Crown's case, star witness Riyad Ben Aissa, another former SNC executive. He testified that to secure lucrative construction projects, he set up a shell company to reward Libyan officials, including the son of dictator Muammar Gaddafi. He said that was all approved by Babawi, his superior, who pocketed about $26 million from the scheme. Babawi's lawyers argued those weren't kickbacks, but bonuses.
But it wasn't enough. The jury decided that Mr. Badawi was guilty.
Sentencing arguments are expected this week. Babawi could face up to 14 years in prison. The company itself is also due back in court this week for the federal case at the heart of a government scandal earlier this year. SNC Lavalin lobbied the Trudeau government for a deferred prosecution agreement. The Prime Minister's office, in turn, repeatedly asked Attorney General Jody Wilson-Raybould to grant one, amounting to improper pressure and an ethics violation. Babawi's conviction doesn't mean that case against SNC Lavalin is a slam dunk.
Maybe it gives extra confidence to the prosecution, but then again, we don't know what the exact story is for that second trial, what the evidence is.
But experts say this latest verdict does show Canada is doing a better job of holding companies accountable.
Since we first adopted an foreign anti-bribery law in Canada in the late 90s, we've had 4 convictions, and it shows a very bad record. We've had pressure from our international peers to be doing better.
That federal case against SNC Lavalin is expected to go to trial sometime in the new year. In a statement, the firm said that it will not comment on court proceedings, past or present, and that it's focused on doing its business. Jayla Bernstein, CBC News, Montreal.
It is pretty much a foregone conclusion that Donald Trump will be impeached this week. That would make him just the 3rd U.S. president ever to bear that badge of disgrace. But very few people think Trump is in real danger of losing his job. Paul Hunter explains.
As Donald Trump awaits the vote this week amid the near certainty he will be impeached, the impeachment process this weekend is what it has been: bitterly divisive, fiercely partisan.
I think this whole thing is a crock.
Republican Senator and Trump supporter Lindsey Graham.
I'm trying to make myself clear. What you're doing in the House is bad for the presidency. I hate what they're doing.
But at this point, there's little Republicans can do to prevent it. Democrats control the House of Representatives. They allege Trump abused the power of the presidency for personal political gain, and then that he obstructed the investigation into that. Democrats say Republicans who back Trump are ignoring the facts.
The American people deserve the truth, not political theater.
Presuming he's impeached, the next step is a trial in the U.S. Senate, which could lead to Trump's removal from office, though that's unlikely given the Senate is controlled by Trump's Republicans. So today from Democrats, a warning on that.
If the Senate Republican majority refuses to discipline him through impeachment, he will be unbounded, and I am gravely concerned about what else he might do between now and the 2020 election when there are no restrictions on his behavior.
Underlining the level of debate on all of it today, the president himself, who weighed in on Democratic Speaker of the House Nancy Pelosi, who leads the impeachment process against him. After seeing this video from earlier in the week, with Pelosi listening to a question on impeachment, Trump, to his 67 million followers today, tweeted, "Nancy's teeth were falling out of her mouth, and she didn't have time to think."
That is the CBC's Paul Hunter. For a 5th straight day, violent protests raged across India against new immigration rules. New Delhi police resorted to tear gas and charging the crowds, and they stormed part of a Muslim university. The new law makes the citizenship process easier for immigrants from several religious minorities, but not Muslims. That's prompted charges of discrimination. At the same time, the law is being denounced by those who oppose any immigration increase. The Italian city of Brindisi carried out a mass evacuation today. It allowed police to defuse a bomb from the Second World War. Authorities released video of the operation being coordinated. About 90,000 people live in Brindisi. 54,000 had to evacuate, including patients in 2 hospitals. The discovery came during renovations of a movie theater. It's believed the British dropped the bomb in 1941.
to see the kind of the finished product, or the whole, you know, as we call it in education, and then we show them the parts here today that get you to the whole.
He gave a crash course to hundreds of local coaches, all looking for tips from the one who led the Raptors to a championship. What Nick Nurse had to say to the hopeful coaches, coming up next. He coached the Raptors to an NBA championship. You know who I mean. And today, hundreds of local coaches sat in on a workshop to learn from Nick Nurse himself. The free half-day clinic offered coaches of all levels an opportunity to talk plays and strategy with Raptors coaching staff to help their young players back home.
I always have it as a high importance to try to, pass along any information. Anybody who wants to know things about coaching, we always try to give them as much information we can. For me, a lot of coaching is can you day to day, strive to improve yourself, right? Can you try to get yourself like these guys done and get themselves in areas where they can learn something, get some ideas and thoughts, and then take them back home and trying to figure out how it makes sense to them and how they can best to use it with whatever age group they're coaching at.
I'm sure lots of good advice from the coach there, Sonia.
I know. Nice guy. I've interviewed him once before.
Yeah, he seems like it.
He is, yeah. Well, I will give you a bit of a tease in terms of what you can expect weather-wise. GTA Toronto, get ready because we are set to experience the coldest air we have seen this season so far. I'm going to show you that in just a little bit, but let's start with the good news. So yes, the snowy system will remain to the south of the Great Lakes. Also, the squalls are dissipating into tonight and into the overnight. This is great news going into Monday morning. The wind gusts, while we have seen 50, 60 kilometer per hour winds, these are also dissipating. So really nothing significant going into our Monday evening. Now, currently we are at -5 in Toronto, -6. That's going to continue Monday, Tuesday. It's going to be 1 degree. I'll show you that in just a little bit. So we are very much near seasonal. So again, 1 degree in Hamilton, 1 in Toronto, partly cloudy tomorrow afternoon. That stays consistent into your Tuesday. But then the temperatures will actually dip. And this is why I'm going to show you. It comes from the Arctic air. So we have the Arctic air literally being pulled down to the south because of the northerly winds, and it will impact Toronto GTA come Wednesday. What does that mean? Well, it's going to be -10 degree digits. That's what it's going to feel like. So Tuesday, as an example, -3, then it dips all the way down to -11 is what it's going to feel like. That's going to stay consistent going into your Thursday and Friday.
All right, we will bundle up.
That's right.
Thank you, Sonia.
Thank you so much.
That's our show for you tonight. Thank you for watching. You can stay caught up on news anytime on our website, cbcnews.ca. Have a great night, everyone.